Last time, we lost a member of the squad, but could there be hope to bring her back to life? Level 11. At that time, we each dreamed on our own paths. Inside the prison, we find the now dead Mary. Shiho is off to the side trembling as Haru begins muttering to himself as he slips into a bloodthirsty trance. However, he hears Mary's voice in the back of his head, telling him to just calm down. He wills himself to stand up, stumbles past Satora, and finds Yume and Kuzaku struggling to hold back an overwhelming number of gorillas. Haru then steals his resolve before charging into battle. We then jump to Ranta, who is eating a frog as he hears his pursuer calling his name. Ranta hides inside a tree, but it's only a moment later that Takasagi arrives, picks up a stick, challenging him to a duel. Ranta is the first to strike, lunging in with a powerful overhead slash. Takasagi effortlessly dodges while poking Ranta's face with the stick. Though eventually he grows bored and sits down on Ranta, calling him weak due to his lack of thinking. He also explains that Jumbo is the person who cut off his arm, and that his ultimate goal is to one day kill Jumbo. Ranta then asks himself what is his goal, but for some reason he can only think of the squad. Takasagi then offers to train him, which Ranta immediately accepts. Back at the village, we find the squad frantically cutting down gorillas as they struggle to survive. Now at this point, Kuzaku has killed so many that they are hesitant to attack him. However, all that goes out the window when he collapses to the ground from exhaustion. Satora has taken up Mary's staff, allowing Shiho to send out Dark to stun the gorillas converging on Kuzaku. They drag him to safety and Yume snaps him out of his daze as Shiho disperses Dark into a magic fog. Kuzaku then notices that Mary is gone, and Haru tells him that she's just inside resting. Yume then notices what staff Satora is wielding, just as the smiling Redback casually walks in and out of the fog. Shiho then recalls Dark as Kuzaku sluggishly drags himself forward, decapitating his first attacker. Haru then saves Kuzaku from another, as Shiho in turn saves Haru. The smiling gorilla then dropkicks Kuzaku and charges for Haru, who dodges 2 attacks before being knocked to the ground. Kuzaku comes to his rescue as Haru looks up to find Yume lying motionless on the ground. Suddenly, he hears chanting in the background, followed up by a massive, fiery explosion. The Rangers then arrive, dousing the gorillas with oil before launching a barrage of flaming arrows. Haru is then filled with rage as he realizes that Jesse used them as bait so that he could enact his plan. The gorillas begin to retreat and Haru refuses to let the smiling Redback get away. Yanni hits it with a bottle of oil and Jesse blocks its path with a pillar of fire, though the beast charges straight through the flames and continues running through a field, eventually collapsing to the ground. Haru catches up and mounts the leader, raising his daggers high, but he finds himself unable to bring them down. Jesse then arrives, confirming that the gorilla is already dead, and asks what happened to Mary. Satora then helps Haru to his feet, who immediately grabs Jesse by the collar, yelling about how Jesse's plan led to Mary being killed. Jesse calmly responds by saying that the village shaman will heal them, and that he needs to confirm Mary's condition for himself. Haru snaps at him once again, but Jesse simply responds by saying,
"There's one way."
Next, we get a glimpse into the past, where we find Ranta walking past his drunk mother to get something to drink. He then begins arguing with her, which allows us to see that Ranta's parents believe him to be inferior to his siblings. Ranta then heads upstairs to bed, as he just wishes that literally anyone would have wished him a happy birthday. Ranta then wakes up inside of a tree where he is once again hiding from Takasagi. You see, Ranta did actually return to Forgan for some time, but has since ran away again. Takasagi then passes through the area, and after a while, Ranta steps out to take a leak. Takasagi immediately approaches Ranta, telling him that he stands no chance of winning. Ranta begins by kiting his opponent before suddenly turning to attack. Takasagi easily deflects his blade, and Ranta attacks again, this time using missing, which successfully confuses Takasagi, turning his expression serious. Ranta takes this time to use the one skill that he's kept hidden: Demon Call. Takasagi lunges forward with rage-filled eyes as Zodiac appears from a cloud of smoke, nimbly dodging Takasagi's attacks. Ranta and Zodiac close in on Takasagi, whose blade turns into a blur, knocking them both away. Takasagi then chooses not to kill Ranta, and instead offers him one last chance to return to Forgan. However, Ranta declines, saying that Forgan would change him into a person that he doesn't want to be. He then remembers his promise to Moguzo, that they would open up a ramen shop together, and this causes Ranta's determination to soar through the roof. Zodiac is then affected by this and begins laughing maniacally as his form changes into that of a Reaper. Ranta then buffs himself with magic as he and Zodiac goes toe-to-toe with Takasagi. Even after all this, Takasagi still has the advantage, and he tackles Zodiac to the ground, then springs toward Ranta, giving him a haircut before locking blades. Ranta then mimics one of Moguzo's warrior skills, allowing him to land a shallow cut on Takasagi's face. Takasagi then drives fear into Ranta as he seemingly teleports and begins wailing on Ranta's defense, eventually knocking away his battered sword. Ranta uses exhaust and Zodiac charges in, dying to Takasagi. However, his sacrifice allowed Ranta to successfully escape. Back at the prison, we find Jesse thoroughly inspecting Mary's corpse. He says that her body is still fresh, which means that he could easily resurrect her. He then explains that he has actually died once before, and that he is willing to sacrifice himself to bring Mary back. Jesse then says that he's perfectly content with dying, and that he didn't change all that much after being resurrected. Haru asks Jesse to do it, and Shiho clings to his arm, saying that she wants this as well. Then together they watch as Jesse slits his own wrist, puts it to Mary's wound, and slowly begins shriveling up into a heap of skin and bone. Now Ranta is currently walking through the forest while reflecting on his relationship with the squad. He continues walking throughout the night and decides to stop and rest as the sun begins to rise. Zodiac immediately calls out to him as he is tackled to the ground and killed by a Vulu. Ranta draws his knife as the beast immediately pins him to the ground, sinking its teeth into his helmet. Ranta uses magic to momentarily scare away the Vulu, earning himself a chance to flee. However, it quickly catches up to him, so he clings to its back, stabbing his dagger into its neck. The beast retaliates by slamming into a tree, which forces Ranta to dive to the ground. A katana abruptly lands at his feet, which he uses to slay the Vulu, before collapsing to his knees, wondering why the heck Takasagi would choose to save his life. Next, we see into Mary's past, where her dad would frequently record her using a video camera. Then one day while at school, Mary receives a phone call from her mother, who says that her dad has died. She goes to the hospital to comfort her mom, before going home to rewatch all their videos, just so that she can hear her dad's voice one more time. Mary then finds herself standing in a field where she sees her family and previous squad off in the distance. She calls out and tries to run to them, but for some reason she can't close the gap. She looks down to find that she doesn't have a physical body, and looks up to see that the world has disappeared. Mary realizes that she must have died, so she begins counting as a way to keep herself sane. We then see a flashback of Jesse, followed by the life of 4 other strangers. Somehow all 5 of them seem to be one cohesive person, and they each force their way inside of Mary. At this point, it's been many hours since Jesse began the ritual, so Haru removes Jesse's hand to find that Mary's wound has completely vanished. They then hear the howl of a Vulu, followed by Satora barging into the prison holding Inba's core, though Haru pays her no attention, prompting her to say,
"You really do love her."
Satora then explains how necromancy works, and that everything she knows tells her that Mary won't be the same person as she was before. She then asks Haru if he's okay with that, as Mary's body suddenly convulses, bending backwards. Haru quickly holds her down as a reddish-black substance begins endlessly flowing out of her body. Then after what feels like an eternity, Mary begins coughing as she looks up into Haru's eyes. This touching moment is short-lived as Kuzaku bursts inside, saying that the Vulus are here. Mary staggers to her feet and searches Jesse's body, looking for the key to the storehouse. She then leads the way outside, using her staff and priest magic to save Kuzaku. The squad then runs toward the storehouse, with the Vulu right behind them. Haru dodges and Kuzaku comes to his aid, aggroing the beast. Haru jumps on its back but is quickly thrown off and winds up flying through the wall of the storehouse. Inside, he finds Mary changing clothes, and she quickly rushes over to make sure he's okay. Shiho runs outside, throwing Kuzaku a shield as he slashes at the beast. Satora then rams a spear into its throat, yelling at Kuzaku to stab, not slash. He steps forward, sinking his sword deep into the Vulu's chest, as Satora, Yume, and Haru each ram a spear through its hide. Kuzaku then finishes off the beast by stabbing his sword straight through its head. The squad then leaves the village with Satora and Kichi leading the way. However, it's only a moment later that they encounter a disgusting creature giving off an overwhelmingly powerful presence. Mary mumbles,
Sakaishu.
as thousands of large caterpillars begin crawling toward them. The squad chaotically fends them off, but Kuzaku randomly begins vomiting while Haru is bleeding from his eyes and nose. Mary screams that they need to run away, and Haru pulls Kuzaku back to his senses and away from the creature. Though as they are fleeing, they are hit with an intense heat wave as they look up to see Mary casting a massive fire spell. Shiho looks up in awe as Mary begins stuttering to herself, completely confused as to what just happened. Satora then bluntly asks Mary what is a Sakaishu, to which she responds by saying,
I don't know.
Haru then grabs Mary's hand and leads the way eastward towards the ocean. Then I just want to remind you that you can support the channel by buying the books through my Amazon affiliate link. A big shout out to my amazing patrons, and thanks for watching everyone. I hope to see you next time.